All right, India's new union budget for 2026-27 is out, and let me tell you, it's a lot more than just a bunch of numbers on a spreadsheet. This is really a roadmap, a blueprint for where the nation is headed. So let's dive in and break down what's really going on behind the figures.
Okay, so at the very core of this whole budget is this powerful idea, Viksit Bharat. That literally means developed India. And the whole game plan here is to walk this tightrope, balancing the huge ambition of becoming an economic superpower with making sure that this growth actually reaches everyone. No one gets left behind. That's the goal.
You know, what's really fascinating about this budget is how it's put together. It's built around these three core kartavyas, which basically means duties to the nation. And this isn't just some fancy naming gimmick, you guys. This framework, this idea of duty, it genuinely shapes every single policy and every rupee spent that we're about to get into.
So, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the big picture. Then, we'll dive deep into each of those three duties: economic growth, fulfilling aspirations, and inclusive development. And of course, we'll wrap up with the part everyone's always curious about: taxes and the bottom line.
Okay, let's start with the big picture. What's the grand philosophy here? It's actually pretty straightforward, turning big aspirations into real, tangible achievements. This isn't about putting a Band-Aid on things. Nope. This is a long-term strategy for stable, sustainable growth.
So these 6 principles you see here, they're basically the foundation for the entire budget. Think of it as the government saying we're choosing action over just talking about it, and real reform over empty promises. The focus is clearly on what's good for people in the long run, not just easy, popular wins for today. And all of this while shooting for a strong 7% growth, keeping inflation in check, and being really disciplined about spending.
All right, that brings us to the very first duty, economic growth. And the mission here is pretty clear: boost productivity. The whole idea is to make India more competitive and tough enough to handle whatever the global economy throws at it.
So, the big question is, how are they planning to pull this off? Well, the strategy is built on 3 main pillars. First, supercharging manufacturing right here at home. Second, a massive, and I mean massive, push on infrastructure. And third, really championing our small and medium businesses to help them compete on the world stage.
And here's where they're putting their money where their mouth is. Just look at this. Public capital expenditure, or CAPEX as you'll hear it called, is getting a huge boost. We're talking about an increase of 1 lakh crore rupees. That's a lot of money. And this is the cash that goes directly into building the stuff we all see and use: the roads, the railways, the ports, basically the physical backbone of a modern economy.
Now, let's get into some of the really exciting flagship programs. Check this out. There's a 10,000 crore rupee fund specifically to help small businesses scale up. Then, another 10,000 crores is going into something called Biopharma Shakti, a huge push to make India a world leader in advanced medicines. And on top of that, they're pouring money into future tech, like the next stage of the India Semiconductor Mission and, get this, 7 new high-speed rail corridors.
Okay, on to this second duty: fulfilling aspirations. This part is all about one thing: investing in people. It's about building up their skills, their capacity, and making sure they're right at the heart of India's growth story. And this is such a critical point, right? Because what's the point of economic growth if it doesn't actually make people's lives better? This part of the budget really zeroes in on that. It's about empowering people, giving them better health, skills for the jobs of tomorrow, and really nurturing that creative spark, especially in the younger generation.
And they're getting really specific with the initiatives here. For instance, to jump into the booming creative economy, they're setting up AVGC Labs, that's animation, visual effects, gaming, and comics, in 15,000 schools. To get more women into tech fields, every single district will now have a dedicated hostel for female STEM students. Plus, there's a big push for sports with the Khelo India mission and a really cool plan to upskill 10,000 tourist guides with professional training.
All right, let's move on to the third and final duty: inclusive development. The guiding philosophy here is Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. You've probably heard it before. It really just means development for all. The goal is simple but powerful: make sure the benefits of a growing economy reach every single family, every community, and every corner of the country. So what does this look like in practice? Well, it means targeted support for some of the most vital parts of our society. The budget lays out specific plans to help farmers earn more, to empower women who are starting their own businesses, and to really speed up development in the eastern states. One of the standout initiatives here is something called Bharat Vistar. This is pretty cool. Think of it like a super smart, multilingual AI assistant just for farmers.
giving them personalized advice right on their phones. It pulls in data from all over to help them boost their crop yields and, just as importantly, cut down on their risks. And that theme of targeted support continues with other key programs. You've got She-Marts, which are basically community-owned retail shops run by women's self-help groups. There's also a really important focus on healthcare with a new National Institute for Mental Health. And for regional growth, a whole new industrial corridor is planned for the eastern states.
Okay, so we've talked about the big vision and all the cool programs. But now, let's get down to the brass tacks. Let's look at the numbers that are supposed to make all this happen. It's time for taxes and the bottom line.
So, this slide gives you the whole budget in a nutshell. On the left, that's all the money the government expects to bring in, its receipts. And on the right, that's all the money it plans to spend, its expenditure. For 2026-27, both sides are sitting at around 53.5 lakh crore rupees. The main takeaway here, they're aiming for a balanced budget, basically planning to spend what they earn.
Now here's a number that economists all over the world pay very close attention to, the fiscal deficit. So what is that? It's basically the gap between what the government earns and what it spends. And for this year, it's projected to be 4.3% of the entire economy. To put it simply, this means the government is borrowing less to pay its bills. And that's a really good sign. It signals stability and shows that they're managing the country's finances responsibly.
So, where's all this money coming from? Well, a big piece of the puzzle is direct taxes, like income tax. And as you can see from this chart, they're expecting collections to go up to 6.9% of GDP. This is actually a really positive sign. Why? Because it means more people and more businesses are becoming part of the formal economy and paying their taxes, which makes the government's finances much stronger for the long haul.
Okay, now for a change that might directly affect you, especially if you're planning a trip abroad. The tax you pay on overseas tour packages, it's called TCS, or tax collected at source, has been massively simplified and cut. That old, confusing system with different rates of 5 and 20%, gone. Now it's just a simple, flat 2%. Much easier.
And there are some other really important reforms for businesses too. First, a brand new, much simpler Income Tax Act is coming. To pull in big global tech companies, they're offering a huge tax holiday for cloud providers who build data centers here in India. To help small e-commerce businesses, they're getting rid of the value cap on courier exports, making it way easier to sell to customers around the world. And for the big IT companies, the safe harbor threshold is getting a massive increase, which just makes tax stuff simpler and encourages more investment.
So when you step back and look at the whole thing, it's clear this budget is way more than just your typical annual accounting. It's really a comprehensive roadmap. It's aiming for stability, it's pushing ahead with some pretty big structural changes, and, most importantly, it's trying to keep people right at the very center of this whole growth story. So the vision is definitely clear, and the path has been drawn. But here's the ultimate question, isn't it? Will this blend of ambitious reforms and people-focused policies be the spark that actually accelerates India's journey to becoming a fully developed nation by that 2047 goal? Well, that's the real billion-dollar question. Thanks for tuning in.